Why would I buy that and not just buy gold stock? It still did not make, like, why do I want it in the house? Like, how am I going to make that a commodity when we going to be trading? Like, I don't know, but yeah, so
carrying a little gold splitter worth $5. You know, sit cute.
well,
Yeah, it costs you $20 to get the $5 gold splitter.
yeah. What do you call it?
Alright, Diane.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's fool's gold, or what do you call it? Snake oil.
The snake oil. And, you know,
Is it calling you?
Not yet. You waiting. Not
yeah,
yet.
gotta let it hit the 3-second delay.
Okay, here you go. Gotcha.
There you go.
This is the rhythm of change. This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we
right here.
bring it down.
Can you see me?
Down, down,
Stay where you are. I don't see Vincent anymore.
down, down, down,
I'm still here.
You sit
Relax.
down?
down,
But you do see me?
No, your screen is black.
Okay, that's what I thought.
down, down, down. Igniting the fire within you.
There we go.
Exalting the
There you are.
melody of freedom.
The thing doesn't automatically, it doesn't automatically connect on Skype all the time.
Is that
Down,
right?
down, down.
Shirt?
Yes, you got the color right. Everybody said my orange shirt the other day was nice, but it wasn't orange.
Down, down, down.
It looked orange.
Oh, my wife's still working on me. See, I'm getting better with fashion.
For men, it doesn't take much. All you gotta do is put on a polo shirt and a pair of khakis.
Tell everyone to stand and
Easy.
shout.
Some days getting dressed is really difficult because I get that look.
Let's bring it way
Well,
down. Let's bring
You
it
throw out all that stuff that you shouldn't be wearing, you should be fine with whatever you throw out.
Let's bring it way down.
I'm at the point where I'm just gonna let her lay my
Let's bring
clothes out
it
the night
down,
before.
down, down, down.
I just sit on the bed on Sunday going to church, me and the kids.
Let me tell you,
You just sit
it's
there
in
like,
the air.
okay, y'all, mommy gonna dress
Joy,
like, mommy
it's
gonna
in the
dress
air.
like, yeah, we gonna look good.
Love is in the air.
And everybody be talking about how we're so
What's it feel like?
coordinated. Like, yeah, that's because my
Freedom.
wife dressed me.
What's it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down.
This technology that makes our life easier actually makes
down
my
for
life
the end of racism,
more
for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of insulting, that's
Yesterday
right.
I had
For all the isms out there,
5
just
Zoom meetings
down,
after
down,
the show.
down.
That's good. That's
Let's bring it
productive.
down. Rise up.
Yeah,
No
productive,
more
but
foolishness.
tiring.
Let's bring it way down.
Riding
Well,
the river
look at it this way. You could have not had any Zoom.
into the cries
Yeah,
of country.
I could enjoy the comforts of a
This
nap.
is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down.
You got your green screen and everything?
Down,
That's
down,
off?
down. Down, down, down.
I talked
So
to Lisa
gather
last night.
the faithful. Tell everyone
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up, stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
Stay the at home. The Rona is spreading. This is no joke. It's no time to work or roam. The way you can fight it is simple, my friends. Just stay the at home. Now, technically, I'm not a doctor, but mother listen when I read a poem. So here I am, Sam Jackson, imploring you, keep your ass at home. If you want things to get back to normal, don't panic. Just use your dome. Wash your hands, stop touching your face, and stay the at home. Motherfucker, it's no time to gamble. Look around, you're not at a casino. Just stay the home as if your name was Trenton Quarantino. Sure, you can still see your friends. Use the mother app on your phone. But unless you just ran out of groceries, please stay the at home. Thank you for doing your part to flatten the curve, because that is steep. And now that you're home, please feel free to go the to sleep. The end.
There we go. So welcome, guys, to another episode of the Eric Dawson Radio Show. Hey, Diane.
Hey, good morning.
How you doing?
I'm well this morning.
Hey, Vincent.
Hey, good morning.
What's going on?
Oh, man, my trainer had to, rub me down after that fight yesterday.
Uh-oh, what fight?
Oh, with some guy who wanted to sell a little sliver of gold.
Hey.
Troublemaker. I told you you're an instigator.
Is Vincent instigating already?
Oh, no, baby, that's stick and move. That's stick and move.
So what's interesting is that I had gotten a call from some, a listener of the show, and they said, "Oh man, that was a hot episode yesterday." Said, "I thought that fisticuffs were going to break out." I said, "No, the idea is we have
stick and move, baby. Stick and move."
No, so the idea is so I want to be clear with folks. The idea is not to have callers or invited guests call in with an intent to attack. That's not it. The goal is always to inform, engage, and empower. We want to be a platform that is sharing accurate and factual information. And so when information is presented, we try to evaluate it. And if you come with an idea or thought, expect it to be challenged. And it doesn't mean that at the end of that, that we can't be cordial and all those kinds of things. But we have to decide whether or not this platform is going to be a trusted platform for people to get valuable and much needed information. And so I think that what happened yesterday was exactly that. Some information was presented. We had our first view of the information and offered our opinion. We then scheduled with Andre to be a regular on Wednesdays so that we can begin to unpack it. One of the things that we talked about yesterday, and I think that we scratched the surface of it, was what is the Federal Reserve? And I think that as we begin to talk about all of that, it's going to be important for us to at least identify some terms that we can agree to, You know what I'm saying? I mean, because if we're not agreeing on certain terms, it's going to be hard to move forward. So we're going to present over the next, I guess, couple of days some information. I am committed to do exhaustive research and provide videos and other kinds of information that begin to really inform you on the foundation of the Federal Reserve, the relationship that the Federal Reserve has with our government, what reporting structure, if any, right, there is, and then how all of that works. And so as we begin to unpack it and we use those terms, we'll be referring back to information. And if need be, we'll create some sort of a page, right, specifically a group page maybe even, for financial literacy from the Eric Dawson Radio Show, where we can deposit links and all those kinds of things so people can continue to refer back to it, because I think it's going to be important, right? At least that is the way that I'm looking at doing it. If you guys have some ideas about it, both you, Vincent, and you, Diane, or maybe Andre as well, since he's going to be a contributor on Wednesdays, and then you as the listening audience, if you want to weigh in on how best to proceed, with this, we'll welcome all of that. We'll find out what makes sense, what doesn't, and the things that do make sense we'll implement.
Well, I think that's a good idea for one, to have like you say, deposit financial information, because what's good for one person in their finances is not always what's beneficial to other people. What Andre Little is doing may be beneficial for some people and affordable for other people, may want to kick it up a notch and do something in a different direction. So I think that's good to have, a variety of information for people's different financial plans.
Well, I think that financial planning and literacy is important, especially in the black community. However, I actually, and this is my opinion, and from the brief time that he spoke, and knowing about the company, what he's doing, what Andre Little is, or what the gentleman that you had yesterday, that was Andre Little, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What he's doing is very beneficial to Andre Little.
Well, again, we're gonna unpack it, right? Because and what we're gonna also have to do, I think, is separate opinion from fact, right? Because there'll be some opinion,
right,
then there'll be some fact. But I think it's important, because if we're gonna go down this rabbit hole, and the other thing that I'm going to be doing is this. I'm going to do my best, and I would ask you guys to as well, to reach out and see if we can find financial advisors, folks who do it for a living, folks who have a pedigree, right? As contributors, so that we can hash this thing out. Because if we're talking about being a space where folks are going to come in and get real information about how to move forward with what little money they have, right? We got to start with this. There's 1/10 the wealth in a black community that exists in the white community. We talk about how financially insecure folks are in our community. And so the last thing that I want to do is be responsible for the little bit of money that somebody has, and then having them listen to this show and take that little bit of money and do something with it that they heard about here, and it goes south. I don't want to do that. So I want to make sure that we have within our network, not just in terms of the co-hosts and hosts and such here, but even you guys who are listening, if there are folks within your network, your sphere of influence, that you can introduce us to, that have the acumen and the pedigree to be able to weigh in a responsible way and in an intelligent way on this, that would be helpful, right? We do need to address the issues of financial literacy, but we need to do them in a responsible way.
Yeah, I think one of the key points in them delivering a responsible way is not saying that you've been studying America finances since 56 BC when there wasn't an America, and then calling people who are calling you out an idiot.
Well, so again, I'm trying, Vincent, very hard to not get into. You want to?
I got it. I got the solution.
I'm not trying to be right. So the idea is not to be personal about it, right? Not to bring, and again, there will be opinions, but the idea here is to not have folks focus on personal attacks and personalities, but have them leave the show having gained some valuable and useful information that can help empower them, right?
Well,
so that is the goal.
I got this for Wednesday.
No. I certainly, we certainly welcome your view, your opinion, and your facts.
You can call Vincent on Wednesday.
Diane, am I gonna have to bring Vincent into the studio? And wait, remember the Sandman in?
I got it. I got it.
Vincent, turn your microphone down.
Well, anyway, listen, guys, and I'm working on it. But I was talking to Vincent. I set up a desk here. And like I had a little ragtag. I should take pictures and show you what it actually looked like. But now I got a desk, Diane. I got stuff, and I got more stuff coming. To improve how things are going. But anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Biden is the presumptive nominee. Bernie Sanders has dropped out of the race. However, he said that he's going to keep his name on the ballot.
Interesting. So what does that mean? That means that he's no longer personally campaigning out there and doing virtual meetings. He's just going to, well, it's too late to take his name off the ballot, isn't it? It's not that he's going to take it off. It's too late to remove it.
It is too late.
Yeah, but, well, it is. Yeah, it is. But, so I'm not sure why he made the point of saying that he's not going to take his name off. But I look. So here are a couple things. Firstly, congratulations, Donald Trump, on being reelected, because he's going to get reelected now. But the idea of Bernie Sanders staying involved is to see whether or not he is honest and true to the campaign mantra, not me, us, right? We'll find out now whether it was about Bernie Sanders or whether it was about us. And I contend that...
How do you think you're going to measure that? Because usually what happens when a person drops out of a race as a candidate, there's a period where they have been burnt out and they're tired. So they need to kind of step back from the campaigning, everything.
No.
So
he can step back. He can certainly step back. But again, it's not if it's not me but us, then it means it's a movement, right? And the movement is around an ideology. What happened, Vincent?
Got to drop.
All right, I don't know what happened to your phone. But it's not, the movement is around an ideology, not around a person. It's around a set of ideas, not a person. And what I believe is that the millions of people who contributed an average of $18, right, bought into the movement, the ideology, the ideas. And those ideas are progressive ideas that identify the pain and suffering of the 99% and the luxuriating at the expense of that 99% of the 1%. And they want to change that. They want to seize economic and political power to make it fairer for everybody. And that's not about Bernie Sanders. That is about a quality of life for 99% of people who currently don't have the same quality of life that the 1% has.
But the same thing I think think has happened when you go back to look at civil rights movements. When Martin Luther King died and Malcolm X died, people kind of fell off and went into their own directions. Are people going to be sitting back again and waiting for somebody else to pick up the reins in the Senate and Congress for them? Or do you think these micro organizations that he's created are going to keep spurring into something to push who's in office to do what they want them to do for the people?
Right. So the difference, I think, between what happened with Martin Luther King and what happened with Malcolm, again, what did I say? You got to have economic and political power. You have to have a political base and you have to have an economic base. I think Bernie Sanders built an economic base. And I think that he showed millions of people that they can contribute a small amount in order to make a big difference. I think he did that. And I think that's going to continue. What he also has done, this movement, is it has seeded, right, within the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, folks who now have some political power, right? You saw Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, and AOC command the spotlight, right? Drive a narrative around progressive values. You've seen that happen. And so there lies the political power. You also see those individuals rejecting the money from corporations. They're rejecting the money from the DNC, and they are embracing those people who want to continue to contribute those small amounts. I think that those are key performance indicators that suggest in a very strong way that this movement has an opportunity to continue. Now, go ahead.
If I could, one of the strength of the Bernie Sanders campaign and movement is basically giving voice, like in the movement of Dr. King and Malcolm X and all of the civil rights leaders that we have. The movement was the young generation because, we were young and we were tired of the oppression that our parents saw. So we came together as youth and energetic to know the system is designed for change and we want change, and we are organizing to get that change. The same structure was in the Bernie Sanders campaign and the progressive Democrat ideology. The majority of the people in the Bernie Sanders background and supporters are millennials. The huge issue with millennials were this. They saw the struggle that their parents went through and they went through with college. So saying that there should be free colleges on attack because we pay a lot of these colleges to stay afloat, saying that free tuition should actually happen. It makes sense. Another big issue that the millennials have is that the millennials notice and realize the huge impact of corporate greed gone amok in America. So you see millennials not feeding into the big greed, and what they've done is feed into the smaller, which became big, like Amazon, Uber, rideshare. The other issue of the millennials is that we're in the wealthiest country on the planet, and we have the best doctors ever. Why should medical care cost so much? And why should there be such a disparity between urban medical care and suburban medical care?
Right. So these are all the things that you just talked about, Vincent. All the things that I talked about, the things you mentioned, Diane, and asked questions about, are all the reasons why I say Donald Trump is going to win. Because all of these pains that folks are experiencing, the millennials that you talked about that didn't necessarily show up at the voting booth for Bernie Sanders, but showed up at the rallies to express their discontent with the way things are, those folks are not going to show up and vote for Biden. Biden doesn't answer the call, that's going to resolve these issues. And so they're not going to vote for Biden. They're not going to vote for Trump. I believe that what they're going to do is they're going to exercise their right to vote down ballot to make change at the local level and at the state level and at the county levels where they live. And in terms of the national politics, the presidency, I think they're just going to stay out of that. And that's why I believe Donald Trump's going to win.
So do you not think that people are not smart enough to say that they still don't want to vote for Donald Trump and they're just going to vote for the Democrat, and their Democratic Party are going to continue to push that for people to vote for? Or do you think that Bernie Sanders is going to help and start working with Joe Biden to help bring over his supporters like he did Hillary Clinton? Or is it too late for him to do that?
Right. So here's go ahead. I'll let you go, Vincent, and answer the question.
Well, to answer your question, one of the things, or answer both of them, one of the things that we had to look at was the last debate with Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. Bernie Sanders said, no, this country needs a revolution.
Right.
Joe Biden bridged the gap by saying, no, we don't need a revolution. What we need to do is to tweak what's wrong. We already have it in place. That was the whole issue. Now, for Bernie Sanders to do something that would be that would help Donald Trump win would be to continue on, because in continuing on, he still has a loyal group or loyal base that will follow him, which what that would do is split the Democrats to either not voting, which is a vote for Trump, or weaken the vote for Joe Biden, which is a vote for Trump.
But here becomes a question that I want to ask you, though, right? So, and this is the conundrum. And I'm putting my brand manager hat on right now. If the brand of the movement is a revolution, right? That's the brand of the movement. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that people are going to pause the revolution. Yeah, and sometimes even the person who may have been the lead of it, if they've got to kick that person out to move forward with the revolution, that's what they're going to do. So when Bernie's saying he can't put the brakes on, not me, us, and now make it about him. And that's what people are hoping that he can do, right? But this train has left the station. If it was not me, us, then the us outnumber. See, the needs of the many always outweigh the needs of the few, or in this case, the one. And so if the one now is Bernie Sanders, if Bernie Sanders is exiting, right, the election, right, he's suspended his campaign, he's gotten off the train. What people are hoping is that he can bring the train to a stop. I don't believe he can. I believe that.
You know what's funny in what you just said in regards to the millennials, and what you said also, Vincent, is there's an article in Fox News, and I never really watch Fox News, but I kind of compare it to other news media. They talk about how Cardi B is furious that many young fans are not going to, that didn't vote for Bernie Sanders, and warns that they're looking at a second term for Donald Trump.
Yes.
Well, and that's the whole thing. See, in terms of the revolution and the movement, it has stopped for the office of president alone. But in terms of the progressive mindset, it's increasing. If you look at Senate races, the congressional races, yes, the local mayoral races, that mindset is still going on. So what it's doing is, even though the top government office in the country has left the station, the race is still continuing on for those locals. And keep in mind that it's politics is based upon numbers. We build, and progress up. The power behind Obama is that the infrastructure was already in place. We had black mayors, we had black congressmen, we had black senators. So that train continued, it already built. And the same thing with the progressive movement. But you also have to remember this, for those people who are saying that blacks are not progressive. No, the progressive movement was started and based upon the ideologies of Obama. If you look at everything that Trump did, being the anti-Obama president and cutting, is impacting us right now. Mm-hmm. Gutting our environment and the CDC, giving more money to corporations and our taxes going up. Now we're facing $2 trillion that America has to pay. We've got businesses that are going under, and what is our president doing? He's giving billions and billions to bigger businesses rather than the small businesses. $250 billion because the money that they set aside and earmarked in this $2 trillion package for small businesses, it's already gone.
Right, but let us be clear about this. Let us be clear about this, right? And this is what I'm saying about this movement. Everybody wants to put this on Donald Trump. Let us go and look at what Nancy Pelosi was fighting for in that bill. Let's go look at what Chuck Schumer was fighting for in that bill. All of the pork that they were rolling into it too. I don't want to just lump this into see, we gotta the movement is beyond Donald Trump. This level of corruption existed before Donald Trump. The greed existed before Donald Trump. All of the lobbyists that are down in Washington had purchased apartments and houses in order to make sure that they were overseeing the interests of their corporations. They did that long before Donald Trump was ever elected president, right? Absolutely. Now, I'm not saying that Donald Trump doesn't need to go. But if that is the single focus, then we're failing at what we need to do. And that's why I'm saying to you that folks are looking at the very foundation of this thing and saying it needs to be blown up. You don't set dynamite on the 40th floor of a building in order to blow it up. Where do you put the dynamite? You put the dynamite down the basement. You understand what I'm saying? And you blow it up from there. And so looking at the White House and saying, you know what, we're going to blow it up from the Oval Office and, hey, please, I know that the algorithms may now cancel our show because I said blow it up, dynamite, and the White House.
Building, yeah.
They're all metaphors, right? I'm not being serious about it. But the point is that the races have to be at the local level. The attack now has to be at the local level, has to be at the state level, right, in order to get this thing done. One of the things that I think was important about Bernie Sanders running was that he had a platform as a presidential candidate, right, in order to be able to, one, raise the money, and then saturate the airwaves with progressive ideas. Right? So he was like Johnny Appleseed, just casting apple seeds all over the place, hoping that, you know, you would, you know, some of them would take root, germinate, and grow. And what we see happening is that's exactly what happened. So I don't believe, and again, got to go back to the chess analogy. The goal is not to get Bernie Sanders elected president. The goal is mate, right? And you can lose your queen on the board, but still mate your opponent. So if we look at Bernie Sanders as being the queen, the most valuable piece that was on the chessboard at the time, doesn't matter. We still have rooks in terms of Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib. We've got very powerful knight at C5 in AOC. You understand what I'm saying? So we can still make some very serious moves, both in terms of pressuring our opponent, right, as well as raising funds. So the money that AOC can raise, and she's proven herself to be a juggernaut in raising money. Ilhan has proven herself as well to be a juggernaut in raising money. Bernie Sanders' apparatus can still raise money, and that money can go to local races, right, to prop up progressive leadership.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because in this article from NBC News, they said even though by quitting the Democratic race early, a show of unity on paper as the coronavirus pandemic continues to upend traditional voting contests and campaigns, Sanders vows to keep collecting delegates in hope of using them to exert power over party priorities and rules at the Democratic National Convention.
Here we go.
He says the struggle continues.
Yeah. So now understand this too. The fight, not only the struggle continues, the fight continues. Do you not believe that the establishment wants to get rid of AOC, get rid of Ilhan, get rid of Rashida Tlaib? They want to still get rid of them. And their belief is, let's understand the chessboard, people. Right? Let's not get emotional and pull out your tissue and cry because Bernie Sanders is out of the race. Or, on the other side, be gleeful that Bernie Sanders is out of the race and tell people, oh, you just need to come on over to Biden. No, you're playing checkers. It's a chess game going. Those people who are still in charge are still people who are very much tied to corporate America. Those people were overseeing through policies the racial divide that we now see evident in the age of COVID-19. I'm going to say that again. All of them, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, look, you go down the list of them. Even when Biden was in office, even when your beloved President Obama was in office, they all sat there and were a part of, right, the policy making that we now see contributed to the racial divide that is evident and killing people now in the age of COVID-19. So those people haven't left. They still have a mission. And their mission is to continue to drive a narrative that supports the interests of the corporations that pay their campaigns.
True. But you look at you look at a majority of them in their entirety. Yes, a lot of people did play their part because a lot of them knew and understood in the mission of the CDC and the program implemented by Obama to give us an advance warning and a group of people who can attack outbreaks at its source. And also part of that was to get scientists on top of researching and how to develop vaccines. Now, when that part got gutted, and it should not have, all of those people that you mentioned and discussed, they should have been outraged. They should have been calling up. They should have been calling up the people and telling them to call their government to flood them up with information of why they should not cut this. They should have did that. They should have did that when he cut Obamacare, which now a lot of people are afraid to and can't go to the hospital when they think they have symptoms for this virus.
That's right.
They should have did that. They should have did that. But no, those people, a majority of those people did not call their local people who support them because they're supported by big corporations.
There we go. And that's the whole point that I'm making. So when you make the statement, or somebody in Washington wants to make the statement, or you read the Washington Post and they talk about what Donald Trump did. Well, I say, okay, fine, Donald Trump did that. But you as a voter, you elected people to protect your interests.
Correct.
So at the point that Donald Trump did that, then all of those people that you elected should have sounded the alarm. Should have put you on notice. Yeah. None of them did that. So ask yourself that question. Why didn't they? Why didn't any of them open their mouths and say anything? But now, right, now that there is an advantage, not for you, but there's an advantage for them. So let's understand that too. Let's understand the motive of putting out the information. The motive is to wound him so that they can win another term in office. Not so that you could be protected, not so your life could be spared, not so that they could decrease the racial divide. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with them wanting to self-serve again. And you have to say enough. But again, the only way to do that, is to get rid of them, because they are forever tied to corporate America. Their dollars.
Correct.
They're not going to look. Go ahead, Vincent. But here's what I'm going to say.
No. You're absolutely right. Reverend Dr. Sullivan said this: you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. When these guys are not becoming part of the solution, you realize that they are tied into the problem. And yes, the only way for America to go through as we look at redeveloping our new norm in America, because post-coronavirus is now the new norm for America. So as we look at developing new patterns in the new America that we're about to set, we should look right now exploiting this. Clean
Right.
the slate
So
of
the
these
question
people.
is, if we're going to clean the slate, do we clean the slate with a Joe Biden?
That's your only option now.
No, it's not.
It is
Okay.
an option because if he's the only Democratic candidate and the only two that are going to be on the ballot is him and Donald Trump and maybe an independent. No, not even an independent, a Republican and Democrat. Your only option is to vote Democrat. Don't tell people otherwise because that's not the truth. The truth is you have to vote for the Democratic Party if you want to get rid of Donald Trump.
No,
Well,
your
but
only
the
option-
question is, so here's the
You
question.
got to vote down ballot for them to.
Here's the
against
question.
themselves.
Here's the question. Do you want to get rid of? And maybe you do. But then I asked the
Why
question.
don't you?
Well,
Why wouldn't you?
Well, but then I want to ask the question. Look, I'm simply saying, I'm asking one question: is Donald Trump your problem?
Donald Trump is part of the problem.
No,
He's not
wait.
the problem.
Wait.
To quote Eric, and you're right. To quote Eric earlier, Donald Trump did not invent this corruption that we have. He exploited it, and that's the whole issue that we're dealing with. He's exploited it to the point where everybody was just. Previous presidents had exploited to the point where they got a little for themselves and their constituents. Donald Trump exploited it where he's gotten the whole pie, and the sliver goes to the rest of America. That's the whole issue. But no, we should not vote down the line Democrat. We should definitely vote in a Democrat for president. But in terms of actually voting Democrat for other offices, believe me, these people who have said nothing and did nothing, some of them are Democrats. We saw one a couple of days ago hugging up next to the governor, knowing he ain't do nothing. He did nothing for the water. He did nothing for the environment. He did nothing about the impeachment. But now he's hugging up, talking about, I'm in this fight for you. Really?
Well, no, I didn't say vote down ballot entirely for Democrat. I said if you want to get rid of Donald Trump,
Right.
vote Democrat.
Right.
Yeah.
And I said the rest of the people, you need to vote against them because you have seen from their actions, from your council, your school board, your mayors, your assembly persons, all of them who have not been in the forefront, not just in this crisis, but
Right.
crises that came before that, you need to vote them out. So you need to vote against them. Whoever it is, vote against them.
Sure.
They're not working, and they're doing everything possible, as you see in many states, even here in New Jersey, on pushing back the elections instead of making it everybody do a paper ballot. They're making every excuse to make it so you can't vote to get your voice out there instead of making it easy and accessible for everyone.
Right. We got a caller. Caller, go.
Hey, good morning, Eric. Hope all is well.
Good
Diane
morning,
and
Will.
Vincent. I just wanted to make a point. You know, I'm Democrat all the way. You know, Eric, as you know, and you know, pushing back the election was a good move by Governor Murphy for the primary. Hopefully they could have done it for the municipal election, but it didn't happen. But I like to bring 3 points that you guys were talking about. You blame politicians all the time. Okay, certain politicians, you know, the norm is that Trump knew about this in late November of last year. Yeah, we knew this, and he knew it himself. But I'm saying is, though, you know, Trump also has removed the acting inspector general for the for the Defense Department. And also today I'm reading an article: over 10 million people in America that have applied for unemployment benefits, and the economy is collapsing. So who do we blame? Who's the guy in the White House? Are you serious? You sit here, portray Trump as a hero and all kinds of stuff. He's not a hero. He's not a hero. He's not a hero.
Wait. Who said he was a hero?
Who are we going to vote for? Who are we going to vote for, Eric?
Wait. Will Hathaway? Who said Will Hathaway? Who said he was a hero?
The options are now dead.
Who said he was a hero?
Out, all the women are out. All the gay people out. Everybody else is out as a candidate for the Democrats. The only person left is Biden. And damn it, if you want Trump again, then don't come and vote. But if you want to get his blood out, you better vote for the Democrat. And then
Exactly. I agree with Diane, because the problem in America right now, we have over 10 million people unemployed. Now, come on. A year ago, what was the stats? What is the approval ratings of these politicians? All right. The only thing that in New Jersey is Governor Murphy has stepped up and saving people from coming out, and the people are not listening. So it's his fault.
Will?
That they're holding parties and all types of stuff?
Will Hathaway, let us be clear. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is a hero. That's not what I'm saying. But
I understand that.
But what I am saying is this.
But you're portraying and saying that Donald Trump is not the cause of this.
No.
$6.65 million.
Don't put words. Will Hathaway do not.
6.65 million people filed for new jobless claims.
Will Hathaway,
don't. March 28th.
Don't put words in my mouth. What I am saying.
I'm not putting words in
your mouth. All right. Well,
then
let me say what I'm saying. I'm saying that Donald Trump is not he's a symptom of a bigger problem. That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying that now we have been bamboozled in not focusing on the core problem. Right? So what I'm going to say, I put it to you like this. If I got cancer and I got 5 tumors and you tell me, well, you know what? We're only going to take out 1 tumor. You're going to still have 4 tumors. Guess what? I still got cancer, right? I want to take them all out. I want to be cancer free.
Exactly. I agree with
I want to be cancer free. And what I'm saying is this, by voting for Biden, you're not going to be cancer free. So let us be clear. So whoever you vote for, do not believe that you're going to be cancer free. There's still going to be a malignant cancer in politics. But what's being painted right now is your savior is Joe Biden. And that is not the case. No. But that is what's being said. Listen. Here's what can happen. And correct me if I'm wrong. See, people are concerned and saying, well, you know what? If we elect Donald Trump, and look, I don't want a 6-3 Supreme Court. And I know that the notorious Ruth Bader Ginsburg ain't going to last too much longer. But here's the fact. If you don't have the votes to confirm, you can't get the Supreme Court justice. So look at what happened when we talk about how Obama was hamstrung by Mitch McConnell, right? You could do the same thing to a Republican or Democrat president if you had the proper number of people. Let me finish my point, Will, because I don't want you to put words.
Reference to Vincent, okay? He's running for state senate in New Jersey.
No. I'm running for federal, United States.
Okay, United States senator. Okay. Now, if they don't want to vote for Cory Booker, they'll go vote for Vincent. Okay. That's an option that they have. Okay, like Diane said, that basically, changing the norm of changing the elections. Okay, Murphy might have made a mistake. I don't know if he did or not, but it's not normal. The country has changed a lot economically, and Eric, I go back a long way. You're my buddy and all that, but I respect you and your journalistic and needs in the community, putting the show together every day, you, Diane, and Vincent. I just wanted to voice my opinion about that because Trump knew about this way back when in November or January. And he didn't do nothing about it.
Correct.
That's my viewpoint.
You know that Trump knew about it because I told Eric on the show, last month or a month and a half ago, that that information came in November of the potential threat of this disease. So if
he fired the pandemic staff. Pandemic staff.
Correct.
So he's the one to blame in this type of pandemic because he had the neutral staff and he fired him. And now this is what we're going through because of this obvious thing of the pandemic. And I'm just going to leave it like that. God bless you. Hope your sister's doing well, Eric.
Hey, she's doing much better, Will. She's back on the front line. And I want to say this. For all of you guys, I posted her picture. She had her mask on and everything, right? She's back on the front lines, getting the job done for people.
Amen.
And she went and looked at the post that I put on my page, and she read all those comments, and it kind of gave her a spiritual boost. So thank you all for all of your comments and thoughtful well wishes.
That's Amen. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. Thanks,
bye.
But Eric, like any corporation, when the corporation is going under, who do they fire? The CEO. And we need to fire Donald Trump.
Well, no. No. Let us be clear. And Vincent will tell you this
here
too.
we go.
No.
Hold on, let me put my seatbelt on.
All right, Vincent, lower your mic a little bit. So what I'm gonna say to you is this: that's not always the truth. What happens sometimes is, depending upon the positioning of the CEO, right? The CEO has layers of people that he or she blames for the initial downfall, and those people get removed first and get replaced. And then,
as a corporation, we are the shareholders, and it's time for him to go. We have voted, and it's time for him to go.
Well, you know what?
We can't have any more casualties, whether it's financial or physical.
I just want to be clear. Whatever people decide to do, I told you what I'm doing. I'm voting down ballot because I believe. I believe.
So you're just going to not vote at all? See, that's the way to do.
No.
Now I'm going to tell you what everybody else says. Why not vote against him? Why not vote?
Well, I'm going to explain to you why. Because for a couple reasons. Let me explain why I'm voting down ballot, and why I suggest people vote down ballot. Because if you look to try to seize the Senate and the House, right? You have the Senate and the House, then you can check whoever is in the White House. So if you have the people in the Senate and the House protecting your interests, then you can check whoever is in the White House.
But you have an option to do both at the same time.
No. So, but now here's the thing. If you now just forfeit and say, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm going to vote himself, then you got the other guy who went to Wall Street and told them that nothing was going to fundamentally change for them, right? And so we're not going to do better under him as a result. So the question is, do you want 40 lashes from this master, or do you want 37 from that one? And what I'm saying is I don't want any lashes. I don't want any. And so the way for me to reduce that is to go and vote here. Not to give more power to the top of a ticket and to the DNC by giving them statistics and votes to the presidential candidate.
The rationale is that the senators and the congressmen and everybody on the bottom of the ballot are going to do and work in your favor. Well, they haven't done that already.
Well, because we traditionally don't pay attention to that, right? Our brain matter doesn't focus on that. Our brain matter focuses on the presidential race. Do you know how many people, when they go and they vote, they'll vote for president, but then when you look down the ballot and you see how many people voted for those other seats, they just go in and push the button for president. And I'm saying that folks need to spend more time focusing down ballot.
Well,
they do need to focus down ballot. They do need to not vote straight one ticket. They do, because like I said previously, we've got just as many bad Democrats as we have good. And if one of the non-conforming politicians is in that Democratic ballot, if you vote down, you just gave him a seat. Now, what also, and Diane, I agree with you 100%. The simple fact of saying not voting is the same as what got us into the situation. The African American vote decreased during the Trump election, and those votes that could have went to Hillary, who won the popular, did not win the elected.
Let me ask you a question, Vincent. Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Had Hillary won, would black folks be better off? Would the racial divide be any less? Wait. No, I want to ask. No. But I'm asking them a question.
I can't answer that.
If Hillary won, would the racial divide, the racial wealth gap, the racial education gap, the racial income gap, the health disparities between blacks and whites, would any of those issues been any different than they are right now?
You don't know that. You don't know that.
Wait a minute. But wait a minute. No. So what we're gonna do though?
You don't know what she would have done
But
or
here's
not.
No, Eric, but I can answer this on your question. I can answer this. One thing that we do know that the disparity gap between African Americans and white America would have definitely gotten, that gap would have definitely got smaller in medical, because Hillary Clinton did champion the Affordable Health Care Act. In fact, it was the same policy under Mitt Romney, which is working very well. Now, the other thing that we have to look at.
I don't want you to pivot from this. Let
me bring this home. Because before you actually answer the question, I was going to say this. The biggest problem that we had in the election between Trump and Hillary was that true America, or black America, all felt that Joe Biden should have been heir apparent to carry on the Obama legacy. And nobody believed or trust Hillary to do that. That's one of the biggest reasons why black people didn't vote for her.
But Vincent, I need you to stay focused.
Am I going to get 49 last?
But Vincent, I need you to. All right, Vincent, you're going off. I need you to stay focused. My question to you is this: if you look at the health disparity that existed between blacks and whites, right? Within the healthcare industry. I'm asking you, say, 2012, at the end of Obama's time in office, and you look at the health disparity now between blacks and whites in the healthcare industry, how they see us, the level of treatment we get, the mortality, the rate, all of those things. There's not. It didn't skyrocket under Donald Trump. I'm saying what I'm saying to you is those things, all of those things, didn't skyrocket under Donald Trump.
Actually, it did because of the.
No, wait a minute. No, it didn't. I'm gonna post statistics that show.
Under this virus, more people have lost health care and their jobs, so it did skyrocket.
No,
Eric, they even came to the president in a press conference and said to him, "Listen, this is skyrocketing between blacks."
No, it didn't. White. But no.
Yes.
Let us.
Would he redo? Would he bring back or reenact the Obama Care Act, the Affordable Care Act? And he said, and he sidetracked. He never even answered it. She's right.
No,
she's right.
No,
Diane's right.
Let us be clear. What we see under COVID-19 is just exposing what was already there. It was already there.
His inefficiency of being a leader.
No, you're missing my point to you.
He has caused the healthcare epidemic and everything else to skyrocket.
No,
and not only did he cause the healthcare epidemic, but he cut the care for black people to go and get checked.
Listen, I'm gonna say this to you. Read the article. Just came to me this morning in CNN. It says the hold on. I'm gonna read the actual headline. It says that the health care or the racial divide has been exposed. See, what they're saying in this article is that it existed, and this thing is just exposing what has already been there.
It
didn't. Wait a minute. It didn't get created. It didn't get created because of this.
I didn't say he created it.
He said he exploited it.
Increased.
No.
You said it is increased, and I said yes because people lost their jobs. They lost health insurance.
No, but you're missing again, I think you're missing the point. I don't want to belabor it too much. I want to move on. But what I'm saying to you is this: that so if I already had a food insecurity, right? So it already existed. I was already living like paycheck to paycheck, and then this calamity occurred, right? And then it triggered this thing where now I'm homeless because I was living paycheck to paycheck. Well, I was always living paycheck to paycheck. I was always vulnerable. Wait a minute. I was always vulnerable. And then my vulnerability was just exposed because this thing occurred. And so what I'm saying is the vulnerability of people in terms of them not having adequate health care was already there. And all the age of COVID-19 did was expose it. And I'm saying that insecurity
it exposed it because there was an increase of people not having coverage.
All right.
Because people that had jobs had health care. And now the ones that don't have jobs no longer have health care coverage.
All right. I hope
so you exposed it because it had to be exposed. Otherwise, we would say, oh, we wouldn't know it existed because people were still employed. People still had health care.
No, but you knew it existed. But there were people who knew it existed. There were people who knew that these insecurities were there. Democrats, Republicans alike, and they ignored them.
We knew that people had these insecurities. We knew that people had a problem with getting affordable health care. Henceforth, Obamacare. What he did was he cut Obamacare. So those people with those insecurities, those people with those
Vincent, listen.
Please, let me finish.
I'm in the thing with Obamacare. Did you ever have Obamacare, Vincent? Did you ever have Obamacare?
Yeah.
I had Obamacare. And when I was diagnosed with cancer, Obamacare wasn't shit. Wasn't gonna do anything for me.
No.
My premiums were too high. My co-pays were too. Wait a minute. You want to tout Obamacare like it was some goddamn savior? No, it wasn't.
Well, it wasn't a savior.
Wasn't gonna do shit for me.
Exactly. It wasn't for you.
So what are you talking about?
But there were millions of other people that it did help.
Not
and
enough.
I'm sorry that you fell through the
Not
cracks.
enough.
No, believe me. Because I'm in the same situation with my medical issue. And no, it did not cover other people. Because as you said in the beginning, the needs of the same thing, the needs of the many.
Let's go to the call.
When Donald Trump did that, it was cruel, it was callous, and it was heartless. For millions of Americans, which right now is being exploited because they cannot afford the simple fact of going there for these checkups. Why do you think we got a 5-mile line for a free coronavirus test?
Why do you think there's so many people that have coronavirus and walking around with it and spreading it because they couldn't afford to go to the doctor when they thought they just had a simple flu?
Correct.
It's spreading because their health care is not available for everyone. Even if you go to a clinic or something, you could be paying $75 to $100 for a visit.
Let's take the call. Call or go.
Hey, what's up, guys? I want to answer your unfair question. If Hillary were elected, would black people be any better off? It's unfair. It would make for a good movie, but it's unfair because she's not in power, and we are on this bird, left wing, right wing, Democrat, Republican, and black folks environmentally have been. This thing has exposed us, but. To a point, like Fauci says, you know what I mean? It's shining a bright light on us. And you can't answer that question and say the problem lies down Donald Trump's feet. I want to know what the preparedness and infrastructure committee knew. And when did they know it? And why didn't they take action? Because this they've been preparing. Let's just say, they're estimating that this is not going to be like they expected. But there are worse viruses that can affect the environment and mess us all up even worse. But, I mean, this is a total failure of government. You can't just say, oh, Donald Trump, his ignorance is costing us a lot. Yeah, that's true. I'm not going to debate that. Yeah, his ignorance is dangerously on a dangerous level. But at the same time, we have to start asking about all of these other committees in our government. Why the government from the preparedness, we weren't better prepared for this. As a government, the orders have to come from the top, but that don't stop people from getting out of line and say, no, you're wrong. Let me go on TV. Let me tell my constituents. Let me hold a town hall. Let me take some actions and drum up some support around stopping this virus from getting here. You can't just say, oh, yeah, Donald Trump's the bad guy. And people like, well, let me just say this. This is not personal just toting the line. Donald Trump is ignorant, and we know this, and it's on a dangerous level. But he has to put the whole government in context. This is a problem of our whole entire government being subverted by people who have other intentions than our quality of life. They could care less. And if we don't care about our quality of life, that even makes it worse. We lead a lot of these statistics because we have these conditions. And we talked about this weeks ago. But it's not just a Hillary Donald Trump problem. Mm-hmm. It's a American failure of government. And there's a new report out now that we're leading the world in our ranking as a population of people. This is our problem, the population of people. And we are such a small population of people, but we lead all cases. So now, when America gets a cold, we get the flu. But damn it, America getting the flu now just like us. Because we lead the world with all of these, all of these statistics. Because of the dangerous level of ignorance throughout government. But that's all I want to say about that. Have a great day, guys.
I appreciate you. Listen, we're going to take a news break. Diane, Vincent, if you guys could check the feed, see if there are any things we need to respond to. When we come back, we'll talk about this Cardi B thing that you mentioned to me, Diane, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Thank you for the call. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Oh, where's my commercial? I could never get my commercials to play. I'm going to get this one, though. Hold on.
You're like my grandfather trying to figure out the remote.
News in Washington.
Here we go.
Another 6.6 million Americans filed unemployment claims last week. NPR's Scott Horsley reports new numbers from the Labor Department show the ongoing economic damage from the coronavirus.
Last week's jobless claims were almost as high as the previous week's. That record-setting figure was also revised upwards by more than 200,000. Over the last 3 weeks, nearly 17 million people have filed for unemployment as businesses across the country close their doors in an effort to slow the spread of the pandemic. State unemployment offices have been struggling to handle the surge in claims. Many people report long wait times to file their applications. Congress has authorized additional unemployment benefits in an effort to cushion the unprecedented blow to the American workforce. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve has announced new economic programs that will provide up to $2.3 trillion in additional lending. These Fed programs are intended for local governments and small and mid-sized businesses. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has released new guidelines for essential workers to be able to stay on the job in the pandemic. These are workers in areas such as law enforcement and janitorial staff. If these workers came into contact with an infected person, they were supposed to stay home for 2 weeks. Now the CDC says they can stay on the job if they are symptom-free, check for fever, and wear masks for 2 weeks. A New York disability group is asking the federal government to investigate a state treatment plan. They allege it would deny care for some people with disabilities. NPR's Joseph Shapiro reports.
The complaint says New Yorkers who already use the ventilator to help them breathe are in danger if they show up at a hospital of having that machine taken from them and given to someone else the hospital thinks needs a ventilator. The state's crisis of care guidelines say that's okay, even though people who use ventilators at home usually are not at the end of life.
These people are living full lives.
That's Tim Clune of Disability Rights New York, which filed the complaint with the federal government. He says people who use ventilators are now afraid to go to the hospital. Joseph Shapiro, NPR News.
The Supreme Court of India has ruled that all COVID-19 testing must be free of charge. But that's led to a backlash by Indian laboratories, which say it puts an unfair financial burden on them. NPR's Lauren Frayer has more.
India's Supreme Court said private hospitals should play a philanthropic role, but some of them say they can't afford to and may go out of business if they can't charge for COVID-19 tests. That could lead to fewer labs and less testing overall. Judges have said they'll consider at a later date the possibility that private labs could get reimbursed by the government.
NPR's Lauren Frayer. This is NPR.
All right, guys. Thanks for staying with us. I was reading some of the comments in there, and the racial disparity within the healthcare industry is a real one, and it's been around. We can seek, choose to blame Donald Trump or blame Republicans, but there are a lot of Democrats who have been in office for decades as these numbers have skyrocketed in terms of the racial disparity. And they see the numbers, but it's not in their best interest. Again, they're tethered to these very industries that benefit on our death. The other thing that I saw in there is somebody posted that many of the backers of Bernie want assurances from Biden before they'll vote for him. I don't really know that you can do that, right? Politicians all lie. They'll tell you they're going to do one thing and they're not. I mean, we talk about Donald Trump, the fact that he said he was going to build a wall and was going to have Mexico pay for it, right? Donald Trump talked about bringing mining jobs back, right?
So if you're saying they can't do that, then you're contradicting what you've said before about people should be going to them and putting their demands before them. And the reason why they don't hear us is because we don't put up the money.
So there we go. So that's what I'm saying to you. So if you're not putting the money up and all you're doing, no, I'm not contradicting myself. That's the exact point I'm making. So the idea of simply going to a guy who didn't need your money, didn't want your money, went somewhere else to get money. And now you're going to tell him, well, you know what? I need you to just say to me, right, some platitudes. Just tell me that you're going to make me feel better, right? It's the abuser. We talked about this. We talked about this yesterday. So but now you want to go to the person who's abused you.
Point to them and saying that, not individuals themselves.
Right, but you want to go to the abuser, right? And you want to say to the abuser, tell me you're not going to abuse me anymore. Right? So there's no evidence of it. You just want him to tell you that. And that's going to be enough to make you feel good. There's something sick about that. So you've been kicking my... So wait a minute. So let us be clear. See, either the things that was said before are true or they're not true. Right? So, was he palling around with segregationists? Right? Because during the debate, we were like, ooh, that came out about him, or this idea now of this woman that he...
about that is pointless. There are two options. You either vote for Biden or you vote for Trump. That's the only options that you have. Or you bow out and allow everybody else to vote. That's the option. So going back and forth to try and paint him a worse racist than he already is between the two, we already know what we have. Because we didn't put up and support the candidates that had better voices for us. Instead, we chose to not support. And because of that, it's whittled down to the three of them and Bernie Sanders, and now Bernie Sanders is out. So the option. So going back and forth about who's the worst is a waste of time. These are your options. That's it.
Yeah. Again, we're gonna forever disagree with that, and we're gonna also
given the report card of Donald Trump and this administration for the term. I mean, it's the same thing, Eric, and I agree with her. We're either going to go with this or we're not.
Right. So again, look, my level of looking at this is different, right? And my true hope is that as you do this, you look at all of the false choices that are out there, right? That the way that the system has been set up to give you this belief that, you know what, the reason we have this situation is because folks sat out in the last election and didn't vote for Hillary, right?
Well, it's the same thing that happened with Bernie Sanders. But let me. You said before with Bernie Sanders, people were supporting Bernie Sanders because he was supporting an issue that touched everybody. But of course, he had his flaws. But people would vote for him. So now Bernie Sanders is out here saying, no, we shouldn't vote for the Democratic Party We need to strictly just release that to somebody else and
No,
vote down ballot.
no. Listen, to me, it's never been about Bernie Sanders for me. It's always been about a poor people's campaign for me. And the question that I'm asking now, as you make whatever choice you make, is it about the poor people's campaign? And then how are you making that choice in alignment with that? So it's not about Bernie Sanders for me. Bernie Sanders just represented the poor people's campaign. If it were another candidate who was representing the poor people's campaign, then I would have been supporting that person. It's the poor people's campaign. And so what I'm looking at now is I'm saying, well, you know what? The people who are representative of the poor people's campaign are these down ballot people. And so that's where I'm going. I'm in alignment with
Who said that? Because I didn't hear any of them say that they were the poor people's campaign leaders.
Wait a minute.
Who said that?
Wait.
No.
Well, that's not true.
Who said that that's up for election and said they're part of the poor campaigns?
I would say Ilhan Omar. I'd say Rashida Tlaib.
For re-election?
What? Yeah.
Re-election?
Are they up for re-election? Yes, they are.
Okay.
Well, I don't think any politician would actually come out and say that I'm for the poor people.
Yeah, none of them came out and said.
Okay, now you're straining gnats, Vincent, right? And see, I don't want to do that, right? The idea is that the progressive values that they fight for, because now I'm going to get upset. The progressive values that they're fighting for the 99%, right? So when you say that they're not saying that they're for the poor people, when they're talking exclusively about how the money is going up to the top 1%, then goddamn it, yeah, they're talking about the poor people. I don't understand what that comment was.
So my question is, now that Bernie Sanders is out, you're saying that we should forget.
No, I'm saying what I'm going to do. You listen, you do what you. No, listen. I think at the end of the day, and this is what makes the democracy, right? Everybody's going to do what they're going to do. I say that the 1.4 million people that stayed home in the last election stayed home, right? Because they realized that it was a false choice that was given to them.
True.
Right? That's why they stayed home. I realize that it's still a false choice. That's why I'm going to vote down ballot. Now, everybody's got to make their own choice to figure it out. But I'm saying, please, don't believe that you're going to be cancer-free by voting for Joe Biden. That's all I'm saying to you.
No, what we are saying is that Joe Biden does have his issues because there is, quote-unquote, no perfect politician. It's like there is no perfect person. Right. Everyone has
and so the question that I'm asking is this: what is the hope? What is the? And then I want to move on to the next segment. But I want to ask this last question: what is the hope beyond getting rid of Donald Trump?
The hope of getting
beyond the hope of getting rid of Donald Trump. What is the hope? What is the hope when you go to put for whoever is gonna? Please put in a thread because I want to go and read them later. If you're going to vote the top of the ticket, what is the hope for the next 4 years?
To reverse what's happening now as fast as possible. That's the hope. To undo everything that Trump has done, to undo what was done before, to put us in a situation financially the way we are now. That's the hope.
To put things back the way they were before Donald Trump?
I said to undo what Donald Trump has done.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. So to put things...
And that doesn't mean going back to what it was. It could be going back to something better.
Correct.
And for one...
No, that's what I'm asking. So what is the hope? So then I want, what is the hope? So not just undoing what he did, but...
Better get it out.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And it doesn't even matter what the hope is. We've already known that Biden has not promised anything, except that it's going back to the usual. So that is what we know we're going back to.
Now, for me, this is the hope of the next election. Now, under the and the previous administration or the Obama administration, America has made some strides in a lot of areas. We have increased our auto industry. We have worked harder on our environment. We've worked on and had a tier level of bringing an encompassed universal health care to all who wanted it or needed it. We have worked on decreasing the the student loan debt. We have worked on increasing the exposure or the input, the black input into America and acknowledging of that. We have worked on black small businesses growing. We have worked on our schools actually doing a great job or a stand-up job. We have worked on and moved forward on changing a lot of mindset in terms of racial equality, and we have progressed in terms of black people gaining political power and structure. Now, what I hope for with this election is that it gets better than what it is now. I'm sitting here in my house, which is now my office, the school for my child, the office for my wife, and entertainment. This is not America, and this is not making America great.
Okay, so wait, we got a caller.
Our hope is that we get a leader who understands the needs of the people and wants to do it, not just give us 15-second sound bites of Mexico playing for a wall.
Okay, so we got a call.
We're working for some poor people while he's feeding the rich.
We got a call.
You know, the one difference that I know I see will happen, the difference between Biden and Trump is Biden will hire people around him, surround himself with people who have common sense and knowledge about whatever it is, whatever committee that he puts them on. I know that he's not going to do like Donald Trump, and it's going to be a revolving door of people coming and going and not taking the recommendations of people that are more knowledgeable.
Right.
That I do know what happened.
Okay, we got a caller, but before you go, caller, I just want to put this out there, and I'll put the information up, the link up to the information. The information I'm going to put up later on suggests that from 1952, when Martin Luther King talked about the racial disparities, the disparities in class, the article suggests that we're doing worse off now than we were back in 1952.
Well, we know that. We read the book.
No. So the point that I'm making is this: if we're doing worse now than we were in 50,
come on, baby.
If we're doing worse now than in 52, we had a whole bunch of the people who we're trying to get reelected in office then. Caller, go.
Hey, Eric, it's Mark. How you doing?
What's going on, Mark?
So I just wanted to speak to the point that you were making about focusing on down ballot, which I think, and I'm on a little bit of a delay here, so maybe I missed some stuff, but I feel like that's being overlooked in terms of the importance of that, particularly when we're talking about the House of Representatives and the Senate, but particularly House of Representatives, because nothing, I don't care who's sitting in the White House, can really happen unless you have cooperation from, Congress. Mm-hmm. And so I agree with shifting energy, to that, and which could, perhaps, and you may disagree with me on this, leverage, more cooperation from Biden if he sees a wave moving in the more progressive direction that he's going to have to acquiesce. I just wanted to sort of raise that thought.
And that's interesting.
That makes sense.
That's interesting.
I think, Eric, we need to have a quick education on civics in regards to the House of Representatives, Senate, Congress, and how each person works along or stops and blocks the president in his function. So I think people, when you talk about voting down ballot, people are very confused as to what it means and what they should be paying attention to. And
so, you know what Mark said, I agree with. So let me pivot a little bit. I think that and so maybe this is where I am. I don't want to focus the energy right now on the top of the ticket.
Gotcha.
Right? So I'm focusing down ballot. I agree with Mark. If I saw that there was a progressive wave that was looking to shift, right, what's happening at the congressional level, at the U.S. senatorial level, to be able to apply the necessary pressure to the Oval Office to move forward the agenda items set forth by the progressive wing of the party, then to me, maybe I'm looking and saying, all right, let me do this at the presidential level. But to have this conversation around Biden,
right,
what he can do, how better he might be, or Trump, how bad he is, how worse off we might be, to me, it is moot if we're not controlling those other, those two, the Senate and the House of Representatives. And so I don't want to be distracted. I don't want to be distracted by believing that simply going and voting for a guy who historically, I mean, look, we talked about all these things. We talked about how he was the author of the crime. The grandfather of the crime, but we talked about him palling around with all. We talked about all these things. We talked about them all. And so if that was the character of him then it's the character of him now. And like I said, I didn't do personally, and I want to see statistics because I'm putting statistics out in terms of where my people, foundational Black Americans, were in 2012 in this country and where we are in 2020. And if you can show me that we are dramatically worse off in terms of the racial wealth gap, in terms of the education gap, in terms of the income gap, in terms of mass incarceration, go down the list of things.
Right.
And
so we dropped the ball because, like you said, we focused too much at the top of the presidential. The president.
The majority of the Black vote comes only on a presidential election cycle.
And they said a few years ago they tried to move a lot of those primaries and school board elections in many towns to move them to November. And a lot of other towns in New Jersey pushed back. They didn't want to do that because one is cost efficient, so you save money. But two, that means you have a larger turnout because people will come out for the larger elections. Like you said, they don't pay attention. Down ballot, school board, council meeting, positions as well. In the feed, Alan Patterson said you need at least 2/3 of the Congress to overturn the presidential veto.
Yeah. Right.
Correct.
So so the question is, if you're really trying to get things done, right? You don't just get them done. You don't just get them done by electing the president.
Sid Webster says that we need to be concerned about the hundreds of lifetime appointments of the right-wing judges that McConnell is installing. This will have a negative effect on us for decades.
Well, the biggest effect that we have right now is we have a predominantly Republican mindset in terms of the Superior Court. So even if we do get something to the highest court in the land, we have to overlook that level of prejudice against it, which has a great deal to do with things that we've been dealing with. Like one was same-sex marriages. The other was health, and of course, women's rights to choose whether to or rather not have an abortion. Looking at the simple fact of them turning over Roe v. Wade and reversing a lot of the benefits that we have had and some not taken advantage of with our civil rights movements. A lot of that comes into effect with the next election.
Leonard Wheeler in the feed says the true hope for equity and equality. They mean between two different things that this country is too far behind in addressing both. The institution of the presidency doesn't care about that. However, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, must challenge the institution itself and remind all politicians that they work for the U.S. and not special interests. Choosing between a Democrat and a Republican only means this administration will place poverty, managing blacks in power to provide the symbolism of addressing our issues, but never meant to resolve them.
Correct. You're absolutely correct. And one of the biggest reminders of those politicians that they are to work for us and not against us is the next election voting them out of office.
And so that's one of the things we got to talk about more, especially for here in the tri-state area, New Jersey, New York, who's up for election in June and who we need to be voting out. And just strictly saying this is what it is, this is what they haven't done, vote them out, vote against them. Don't give them one vote. Stop voting the family and friends plan because it's not helping everyone.
It doesn't help anybody. Doesn't help anybody. So listen, here's an article. Here's an article that I put up regarding COVID-19. Right? They are saying that they are counting all cases of COVID-19 or anybody who, wait a minute, how's it put? I'm trying to find the actual article. Bear with me 2 seconds, people. Oh, here it is. Headline, Birx says that the government is classifying all deaths of patients with coronavirus as COVID-19 deaths, regardless of whether or not they have an underlying condition or not. Thoughts about that?
What's the statement? I'm sorry.
So the statement is Birx, right? That she is saying that the government is classifying all deaths of patients with coronavirus as COVID-19 deaths, regardless of cause. So if you had an underlying condition,
underlying cause, is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
Regardless of the underlying cause. So if I have a heart attack,
but you have a heart attack, but they know that you tested positive for COVID-19. They're classifying it as a COVID-19 death.
Relation. Okay. That could be good and bad, depending. For one, well, I don't know. It's the same thing. Wouldn't it be the same if you age of age or pneumonia, like that?
Well, I'm gonna call. I got you on the phone. Just hold on 1 second. It says the federal government is classifying the deaths of patients infected with the coronavirus as COVID-19 deaths, regardless of any underlying health issues that could have contributed to the loss of someone's life. Dr. Deborah Birx, the response. Oh, we're getting a lot of calls coming in. 1 second, caller. Let me finish reading the statement. It says, Dr. Birx, the response coordinator for the White House coronavirus task force, said that the federal government is continuing to count the suspected COVID-19 deaths despite other nations doing the opposite. There are other countries that if you had a pre-existing condition and let's say the virus caused you to go into ICU, right, and then have a heart attack or kidney problem, she said during a Tuesday news briefing that at the White House, some countries are recording that as a heart issue or a kidney issue and not a COVID-19 issue. She said that we're doing that here in the U.S. Caller, go.
Hi, caller. How you doing? Good afternoon.
Oh, I got Anton. I got somebody else. Anton, go.
Hello, can you hear me?
I got you.
All right. Listen, I just wanted to chime in real quick. I want to appreciate the discussion and the dialogue. It's something that definitely must happen. So that we can begin to officially be woke, not just say that we're woke, and start doing a deep dive into some of the issues that you're discussing about. One of the things that I wanted to say, the second thing I wanted to say is about that in and of itself. That should be cause for alarm for everybody that's involved. And who are and as we know, people personally who are being affected by this disease or being affected by whatever is going on in society right now. And what I would like for you to do is, when you have some time, I want you to do some research. And I was talking to Eric yesterday about it because I definitely wanted to be involved and maybe come on the show as a guest one day and do this. Wherever you lay, when you look at those maps on CNN, MSNBC, or wherever you do online or whatever, it is important that where those outbreak infections are, if you lay that map down and then lay the UN 2030 resolution, the 21st Agenda resolution down, those countries that were at that meeting, those are where those hotspots are. And so much as acknowledging that, you have to remember that the Sackler family, I believe it was the Sackler family who was responsible for the opioid addiction stuff. They had a, $42 billion corporation that they had to dissolve, and they have to pay all this money back. Where do you think the medical corporations and where do you think Big Pharma is going to recoup all of this from? Where else does it come from?
They have to create a situation. Come on, I mean, like, I get tired of people saying conspiracy theory, but they're not a Tuskegee experiment.
Right.
Hell, my mother told me when the Atlanta child murders happened, my mother told me that was the CDC experimenting on our kids. Think about it.
Right. No. So let us be clear. I'm not disputing that they are conspiracy theories. I just don't want to throw up conspiracy theory. You still have people.
Eric,
But wait a minute. Let me finish my thought, brother. But you still.
It's not theory anymore, Eric.
No. But you still. And so the information that you just provided, I'm going to go and I'm going to research, and we'll have more conversations about it. If you put the link into this feed, everybody can do it, and then we can circle
Eric,
back.
And let me finish with this because I know y'all got to get on the show. I'm going to do you with this. Eric, they tell you this stuff. The World Health Organization, UNESCO, United Nations,
Right.
These are on their website.
No. I'm not.
This information isn't being hidden.
I'm not disputing it. I'm simply saying, put it up there. I'll review it. That's all. Right?
Eric, I'm going to put it up there. But what I'm saying to the listener, this is not for you. What I'm saying to the listener, so we can get away from that conspiracy theory mantra. These are facts. So to get away from that, what I'm saying to the viewer is, they want you to believe it's a theory or a hypothesis. When in actuality, this is something that they practice. That European put smallpox in them blankets and brought them over here to the Indians. Biological and germ and weapon warfare ain't nothing new. To be Haile Selassie, the Italians, they had to drop mustard gas on them Africans, and they still kick their tail. So what I'm saying to you is, we have to understand that there is nothing that greed and big profit won't do.
I agree with that.
Stay on top.
I agree with that.
That's all I'm saying.
Anton,
thank you for letting me share.
Anton, I have a question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Diane.
Before you hang up. So with these things based on history, and we know that they have done testing on people because that's a fact, and we never find out about it 15, 20 years later. When they're doing testing, are they also developing the cure at the same time, or are they doing after the fact? Has history shown?
Well, the reality, history automatically shows that they have a desired outcome. So in having a desired outcome, what you do now is provide remedies around the effects. So remember, pharmaceuticals don't cure an illness and treat an illness. They help you manage it so you can continue to live, so that they can what? Continue to make money. So yes, they have a desired effect in mind, because think about this. Every major disease we have, what does it attack? Our respiratory system and our circulation. Think about that. Did you understand that this COVID-19 thing is a portion of HIV? It does the same thing. Like, it's 19. This cat done had a wife, an ex-wife, kids, a grandkids. It's the same COVID number one. You know, we have to stop thinking and looking in these grandiose terms. And just, this is reality. This is how they do business. They kill presidents. They install dictatorship. They melt financial markets. They lock people in their homes. They tell us we shouldn't deal in communism, but then they go do business with China. We don't know what's going on in China. As soon as we start covering what's going on over here, they kicked our media out. You know, we don't know.
This is true. I was reading an article, and I can't remember the professor's name. He worked at Harvard, and he was just recently arrested, probably back in February, that he had set up a lab. He was hired by the Chinese government to set up a lab so that he could do experimental procedures and scientific stuff over there. They didn't really discuss it. They never said anything had to do with this, but what they were saying was he set up a lab, and it was called Wuhan-Harvard Scientific Lab. And Harvard said that they didn't have anything to do with it, nor did they even know that this professor was getting a stipend of $50,000, I believe, a month to run this lab facility, as well as additional living expenses and stuff like that. The FBI arrested him based on the fact that he did not disclose the information to the university, as well as that he had hid the information, and he was even working with another lab on any type of scientific thing. Now, there was another Chinese person that was working with the professor that has since been fired and sent back to China, because they stated again that they were selling information and selling scientific information to other countries. So I think to what Anton is saying, everything, you're right, is not a theory, and there are many things that we have to really pay attention to, because history shows that people are definitely not for the good of everybody. They are looking to monetize on what they do in their experience.
Real quick, Diane,
if I could. By the way, last night they did the genealogy search on the COVID virus, in which Donald Trump said that it came from China. It originated in Europe. The second thing was that the FBI chemist from Harvard was arrested, not for creating or working on the COVID virus, but for intellectual properties.
Right.
He was basically stealing information. He was basically stealing information that they were doing American research and selling it to China.
Right.
It was espionage. It was university
espionage. He was working for the United States government.
Wait a minute, we're talking over each other.
Well, I'm sorry. I was just trying to
good, Farrakhan.
You're right. Vincent,
because he was working for the government. He was working for the military.
Right.
The girl.
Wait a minute, Vincent.
The People's Liberation Army. Was it the People's Liberation Army she was an officer in?
Yeah.
And the young lady that was working for him. Also, what you have to know is that there's a big investigation in Congress, which nobody knows about all of these major universities, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, that have these. Do you understand colleges in this country have bigger endowments than some businesses? They're talking about $40 billion here, $32 billion there, $28 billion there. These are college endowments. They get money from foreign governments under the guise of doing research and trading information and things of those natures. They're getting too powerful. The colleges and universities aren't American anymore.
All right.
Because they are subject to foreign influence.
Go ahead, Farrakhan.
If China owns $6 of every $10, they own 60% of our debt. What are we talking about? But we'll block out Russia. Now, I'm not a Putin fan, but we'll say we're dealing with communist Russia, but then we could do business with communist China. Wake up, people.
Farrakhan,
it's
go.
about money.
Well, thank Nixon for that one.
Farrakhan?
Well, I called this for two things. First, Diane, to what you had asked about AIDS. No one dies of AIDS. Okay? At all. So whenever a person dies that has been infected with HIV, they get what they call, AIDS, what is that?
Advanced immune deficiency syndrome.
Right. So what ends up happening is when their cause of death will be whatever their direct, if you had a pneumonia, and that's what caused you to die. So that's what's going to be on your death certificate. Okay, not AIDS. So the fact that
I think it's
somebody said something. Yeah, what I was going to say is that in reference to them doing the COVID-19 death count, they do not count people who die in their homes.
Okay.
Wow, they don't? No.
If everybody is not on the same page on how they
think about that, though. Think about that, though.
That means
wait a minute, Anton. Go ahead, Diane.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say, just think about that. That we're playing a game, actually behind, coming from behind. They're in the fourth quarter, and what I'm trying to say is that, listen, I watch MSNBC, CNBC, and all those other stations for what they don't say. It's entertainment to me. You understand what I'm saying? And how is it that they're going to promote what's best for us when every 30 seconds, every commercial they got is a big pharma commercial? And I'm just an educator. I'm not off it like that. I'm not on it like that. I just want y'all to know that I care. I respect the dialogue. I want y'all to keep doing what y'all doing. Because even as an educator, I see people are afraid to know, because with knowledge comes responsibility. And with responsibility comes action. People ain't ignorant because there's no information. People don't want the responsibility of knowing. Because you have to act. If you're taking deaths, right, and you're calculating them, and you're saying, you understand over 600,000 people died of heart disease in 2018? Do you understand in 2018, 9.1 million people around this world died of hunger and starvation and malnutrition? Where the hell is the pandemic on that? Don't beat me in my head. Don't beat me in my head. 9.1 million people died because they couldn't get proper food last year. 300,000 people in this country died of upper respiratory illness. Do you know in Italy, 100,000 people alone
Italy, China, Spain, all those European cultures have heavy what? Smoking cultures. They're worse than America. Under respiratory illnesses, 100,000 people a year die in Italy because of respiratory illnesses alone. What are we talking about? Who are we talking to? Who are we getting our information from? We talking to Shanique and Mufi and then John and Paul and White Pamela. Yeah, they know it. No, that's not true. The information is there. They hide it in plain sight. You in 2020, it's 21st
So wait,
century.
wait, so no. So we get right. So here's what I want to get. So I'm not disputing all of the information that you have just laid out, and that there are, cancer deaths, heart disease, all these other things are outpacing the number of deaths that are being attributed to COVID-19. What I'm saying right now, in the space that we're in, there are people who are currently dying from this infectious disease. Right? And so we can go back and I think that there will be a time for people to and for those who can walk and chew gum, maybe you look into some of the things that you're talking about. My biggest challenge right now with everybody is that when I look in the streets and see people who are not covering their faces, people who are disregarding the transmission of this thing because they're getting pieces of information, true or not true, and then they're talking about these conspiracy theories, right, without all of the information, it is leading them to act recklessly. So during this time, my what I have been is try to be single focused and just saying to folks, like right now, because in terms of high school mates, 5 of my high school mates died, right?
Eric, I just want to say one thing. All that you're talking about is because people don't trust their government.
No.
See, I always told you that.
No. So to say no. So here's the real simple. But here's the real simple thing that I want to.
People don't trust their government, Eric.
Listen, the real simple thing that I want to get to in this space right now is if you go outside and you cough in somebody's face and you have the coronavirus, can you transmit that?
So I read an article today.
Just a real simple question.
Talks about.
I didn't. I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry, Diane. I didn't hear.
No, go ahead.
Right. So
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay. So real simple questions right now.
Okay, sir.
If somebody has the coronavirus and they go out, they cough in their hand, or they cough in somebody's face, can that person contract the coronavirus?
Yes.
Okay.
Just like the person who
No. I want to. No. I'm trying to. No. Listen. I mean, no. I don't want to confuse.
Can there be a voice of reason?
No.
Let me hear me for 1 second.
Let me just finish my.
I'm not debating anything. I'm just saying. Please.
All right. See, this is going to devolve into talking over each other again.
I'm not debating.
I want to finish asking my line of questions.
Let me tell you this one thing.
No, I want to finish my line of question.
If you guys say, let me say the one thing.
And then you can come in with your reason. I mean, we would appreciate, because
all I'm saying is this.
Let me finish my line of question. I'm asking, and I'll give you the entire floor. Let me finish my line of question.
I thought you did, Eric. I didn't hear you.
No, that's what I'm saying, because we're talking over each other. One, can somebody contract the coronavirus through the means that people were talking about? Touching a surface that exists on somebody, coughing in somebody's face, all those things. That's one. Then secondly, does it attack the respiratory system? And then thirdly, are black folks, because of their current precondition, right, more vulnerable and then dying of it? Those are my 3 questions, and I just want straight answers to them.
All right, here you go. I agree with you. If a person has any type of disease or germ and it is transmitted through your glands that way, yes. If you touch any surface, germs are germs. Yes, I agree with that. Do pre-existing conditions matter? Yes, I agree with that. Okay. The middle question you asked, does that matter? Yes, I agree with that. However, that's not my point, Eric. I'm not disagreeing with you with that. Right. And that's where I think we need to listen to understand and not respond. What I was saying was the reason why. What I was saying was this: the reason why people aren't following those guidelines is because they don't trust the information given to them. I ain't got nothing to do with nothing else. Don't put me in no other box. That's all I'm saying.
Gotcha.
All I'm saying is the reason why people aren't listening is because they don't trust where the information is coming from. That's all.
Got it.
That's all. Gentlemen.
Go ahead, Farrakhan.
I have to agree with Anton. I read an article earlier that talked about no news or bad news, and they did research on thousands of people who would prefer not to know as opposed to knowing something bad, and they choose over staying informed.
Right. Go ahead, Farrakhan.
There you go. Listen, I'm educated. I have to both of you guys' points. Those two. Anton, to both of y'all points, okay? You're both right. Okay? The thing is, people do not trust the government. And yes, all those things that you said are correct. The problem isn't either. The problem is simple. They are letting people die. Don't worry about the conspiracy of the government right now. Don't worry about what coronavirus can do or not do. The reality is they are allowing for people to die under this cause. Right? And by them allowing people to die under this cause, you have to protect yourself from this cause. And that's why I was saying, you guys can go back and forth and get to the angles of it. Right? But forget the angle. Let's deal with the flat plane. The flat plane is they will let you die if you say you got a cough, a sneeze, and a fever. Right? Whereas 6 months ago, they will have given you some preemptive therapeutic treatment to stop that. Today, if you call up your doctor and you say, I got a cough, I got a headache, and a fever, he's going to say, get in your house right there until you can't call no more and somebody got to call an ambulance for you. So you want to protect yourself from COVID-19 because of that. Okay, so that's the other point. Protect yourself because of that. And yes, to what Anton is saying, yes, people don't trust the government because the government doesn't function for the small man. And when you say it as an individual, you're saying, government don't care nothing about me, so I can't trust it. Then you go and you look at the TV and you look at the news is totally commercial.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if it's MSNBC, it doesn't matter if it's CNN, it doesn't matter if it's Fox. They each have an angle. And that angle is the angle that they talk. Now, if you listen to all 3 of them, you're going to get 3 different breakdowns of every speech you see Cuomo have, every speech you see Trump have. They're all different because each of one of those information centers wants to give it to you from their angle.
Right.
So, again,
if I could.
Well, go ahead.
If I could, people have a trust issue no matter who it is. So what we have to do now is this. First and foremost, check the source and read it thoroughly. As Eric said on his show lots of times, what we've run into is that people have been spreading rumors, false information, and it's been going viral because they read the headline, then start tweeting or Facebooking what they believe the headline to be interpreted, and it turns out to be totally different. The second issue that Eric made, we're going back and forth and back about how this started. They've already checked that it originated in Europe. And we're going back and forth about the conspiracy theory of somebody making money off of it. And we know Big Pharma makes money off of it. We're going back and forth about trusting our government. And we know our president lies every time he fits it. Right now is getting through this.
Yes.
Staying safe. Staying your behind in the house. Not coughing in people's face. Wearing a mask when you go to stores. We can worry about the who did what and let history dictate whoever did what and shot who later. But for right now, you need to keep you and your family safe.
Yeah. Come, we got another caller. Wait, guys, we got another call. Guys, we got another caller. Caller, go.
Hey, yeah, I want people to be careful with anecdotal approaches to the whole thing. Yeah, I understand conspiracy theories and people will get experimented on, but we're in the flood now, and you know what I mean, all of this, how they're counting people, deaths and people dying at home. The reason I brought up the preparedness and infrastructure committee because earlier is that the infrastructure that usually is diagnosing people's deaths is the hospital or the doctor. That infrastructure is busting at the seams right now. You cannot, it's so ill-equipped that they don't have time to each and every individual go over with a fine-tooth comb. Not that they're going over with a fine-tooth comb when you die anyway, but they don't. The infrastructure is failing us on every aspect of American life, and that, if we get up in anecdotal approaches instead of looking at it as a whole, then it's going to create a bigger vacuum for us to fall in.
Right.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Anton, any words to that?
I just wanted to submit. One thing.
Yes, sir.
And I was listening to what Brother Vincent, I believe, was saying about the right now. In my opinion, and how I look at it, the problem is that we always get people who act in the right now, and then we don't have those who sacrifice for the planning for the long term. Every other culture does better than us is because they're not about the right now. They deal with the long term. So we should have different silos of our community working on different aspects to better the plight of the working poor, of the poor people, and we don't. You understand what I'm saying? So I feel you with the emotionalized thing going on. I feel all that. Protect. But listen, forget a disease coming in your home. We live in a country where the police are coming in your home and kicking the door and kick. So there's a whole mandarin of things that we need to address because this ain't no different than them using 9/11 and terrorism. Now it's bioterrorism. So, I mean, I would love to sit down with you. I would love to sit down with you when we have some time and build so I can get a better perspective of what it means when you say some of the things you say. Because there are much of opinions. Everybody has one.
Right.
And, I think that the problem is we don't put out, like in education, we don't share our best practice.
Right.
And that's why we fail as a people.
Thanks.
So I'm not great at the thing. It's just like with Eric a minute ago. The 3 questions Eric asked me had nothing to do with what I was saying because I agree with it. What I'm saying is we need to get back to the understanding that we have to take a viable responsibility for what happens to us.
Right.
My mother used to always tell me, Anton, don't let nobody make no decision about you that you ain't had input in. Because the person who got to deal with what the decision is the person you look at in the mirror in the morning. And that's fail.
Farrakhan, you got any last words?
Can I throw this simple hood analogy out there that basically breaks down what we should be doing in this moment in time? And it's real simple. If you were to hear gunshots right now, right in the hood, right, you hear gunshots somewhere near you, do you stand and say, are they shooting at me? Or do you duck and get behind the safest thing you can? You duck and you get behind the safest thing you can. I don't care what. I don't care if you know they're not shooting at you or not. You duck and you get somewhere safe. Whether you duck behind a car, a wall, or whatever. And that's what people need to understand they got to do now. Let's not worry about who they really shooting at, why they shooting, type of gun they shooting, right? Whether you call it COVID-19 or 5G radiation. Right now, you got to duck from whatever shots is coming. That's right. I'm happy. The other day when they killed the kid down in Newark, I was there. Okay? I was in the building that it happened at. Okay, and when those shots went off, I didn't try to figure out whether or not them shots was coming through the apartment window and shooting me. I just ducked. I heard the shot and I ducked. I and knowing that 9 times out of 10 it had nothing to do with it.
But that's what you do when a threat comes your way. You get the hell out of it. So everybody that's listening, get the hell out the way of the threat.
So listen.
But then you got
so
people
listen.
that need to assess the threat, Farrakhan.
No, listen.
That need to assess the threat.
Right.
So, and them the ones they're going to get hit with the ricochet. So if they that dumb, let them go.
Okay, guys, listen. We're not going to solve it all here, but what I do love is the dialogue. And I think that we're all saying a lot of the same things. That there is a threat. We need to look at it. We can walk and chew gum at the same time, which means we can assess why we're being threatened in the first place and who it is that's posing the threat. But there has to be, I think, an order of priority during the age of COVID-19 in terms of how we do these things. Some of them have to be done immediately. Some will be more long-term. But listen, I'm, in terms of the, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. Well, firstly, Farrakhan, thanks for calling. Anton, thanks for calling. Since we're sheltered at home and whatever, please, guys, become more part of the conversation because we're going to have to resolve it. But listen, I saw a funeral yesterday on YouTube. So this is part of our new norm, right? Yeah. A friend of Amina's passed away, right? COVID-19, right? So contracted it, underlying conditions. She expired. 8 people were able to attend, plus you were right, Farrakhan, when you and I talked, plus the 2 people from the funeral home or wherever, right? And then the family broadcasted it on YouTube so that other people could see it. That's our reality, right? And
that's our new norm.
And to Farrakhan's point, it's going to be more and more and more. We've done on this show a bunch of different things to talk about how people are going to cope with the emotional trauma of it all. We're going to do more have more shows like that, and we're going to talk more about the origins of it and all of these other things to protect ourselves long term, right? Through education. And then we're going to talk about on more shows how to protect ourselves in the immediate. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Diane, I love your camera lighting. Diane's got that. Wait a minute. Wait, what was it? What was the show, guys? Sybil Shepherd. What was the show she did? What was the TV show? Moonlighting. That is that. If you look at Diane's lighting, that's what she has. She has that moonlighting Sybil Shepherd.
Moonlighting Private Investigation Agency. That's what it was. Yeah. Hey, Diane, let me know if you need a partner.
Make sure you like and share the show.
Share the show, guys. Please stay informed.
Thanks for letting me share, guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, I love you all. Stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.